In Raised by These Wolves, Volume 3, author and advocate Maryann Petri delivers another gripping collection of true stories that lay bare the corruption, greed, and devastation within the family and juvenile courts. Maryann, welcome back to Triumph Talk. We're about to talk about the third book in the Raised by These Wolves series, which is probably, I don't know, they're all great books and you definitely don't want to be like making it a competition. However, I feel like this book is making the case of how corrupt our courts are, especially dealing with family and children. And it's probably the most important issue you could be taking on, and you've certainly been empowered to do it. You have had an incredible run with your podcast, Slam the Gavel, and that's actually where you're getting the stories for this book. And it was largely through interviewing these people. And everywhere I go, people know who you are. Know that yes, every time anything to do with family court corruption or CPS, or everyone knows who Maryann Petri is. So I know that you're making a difference. But we just launched this book recently. It went to number 1, hot new release. Your number 3 all-around bestseller, which is fantastic.
Yes,
great
thank
start.
God.
Yeah, a great start. So I'm really excited to talk to you about your book and dive into what this book contains. So I know that it's the third in the series, but I still want to ask you the question. Maybe the question should be rephrased a little bit. Instead of just what inspired you to write this book, what inspired you to write a book series that has taken so much to accomplish? And, I know that it's a labor of love, but give me how you keep going and what inspired you to do this.
Well, when I wrote the first one, I had stories that had to be told to the public that the public is not aware of, which led to volume 2, which had more stories. And also some of the people that were in the first one are in the second one with updates to their case. Then the third one, I thought, well, I'll do volume 3, make it a trilogy. And I still have new parents in there talking about their cases and the corruption that goes on. And a lot of people in there with the updates as well. But volume 2, I focused on New York State. Volume 3, I focused on North Carolina, the South, what's going on there.
Well, that's a good segue into my second question, and that is, what do you hope people will take from reading your book?
I hope they will look at it closely and realize that these courts are not legitimate and do not go in there. It's hard to tell someone to not go in there, especially when your ex is a personality disorder.
Yeah, because he's going to drag you there and you don't
Right.
really have a place. But the ultimate message is it's all corrupt. It's just a money-making scam.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to go there. So
No.
For anybody who can possibly work it out, they need to do it outside of court. But of course, so many people are forced to go. So then it becomes important, I think, what you're really doing is just shining light in a very dark and disgusting part of our country. And,
yes.
I mean, it's our country, but I know that it's an international problem as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's widespread. Well, let's talk about the content of your book. So I love to share what I took from reading it, and just what I've done is I'm going to grab my book here and I've selected some excerpts that I'd like to read, and then you can expound on them or we can discuss them.
Okay.
And it gives the viewers a chance to get just some actual content of what you're teaching and what's been shared. Let me put on my glasses and read the first one. So I just wanted to start. The first one I chose actually comes from the foreword. I think it's really significant that you were able to get a judge to write in the foreword. And I want to read what she said, just part of it. She says, "The stories within these pages are not just accounts of pain. They are testimonies of resilience and courage. Each parent, advocate, and survivor who speaks here does so not for vengeance, but for truth. They remind us that justice must be grounded in empathy and that silence in the face of wrongdoing only deepens the harm." This book matters because it forces us to really look at what happens when systems destroy the ones they are designed to serve. It challenges us to listen, to question, and to act. And in doing so, it invites us to become part of the solution, to rebuild a culture of accountability, compassion, and hope. Read these stories not as distant tragedies, but as calls to conscience. For as long as injustice hides behind the language of best interests, voices like those in this book must continue to rise against the silence. I just think that's such a great lead into your book.
She was wonderful writing that. I really appreciate her input. She's a great friend. We've been friends for well over close to 2 years.
That's wonderful. You're making some amazing friends in this journey, I know.
Right.
So the
Right.
next part, actually, your introduction, of course, is important. You say, when I began collecting the stories that became Raised by These Wolves, I didn't envision a trilogy. I believed that after the first 2 volumes, the message would be clear, that the devastation caused by the family court system would spark reform in the areas of Title IV, B, D, and E, accountability and compassion. I thought perhaps we had planted a seed, finally reaching a turning point. But the phone calls didn't stop. The emails kept coming. Parents continued to reach out, pleading to be heard, desperate for someone to believe them. Every new story carried the same familiar patterns of deception, lies, and betrayal. Every new case reminded me that what is happening in family courtrooms across our nation and globally is not random, not accidental. It is systemic. And so the fight continues, huh?
Right. And I had someone say, why tell these stories? These parents call you up and you have them on the podcast and they're just, for lack of a better word, whining. And I said, no, they're not whining. If you listen to the podcast on Slam the Gavel, they are also offering solutions.
Yes.
To some of their cases. And I always have it that, we are not attorneys and we're not giving legal advice. We're just giving our opinions. But the stories have to be told, because if they're not, no one's going to hear them. As, for instance, the orphan trains back in the 1900s, when they were just shipping kids off from New York State, New York City, putting them on boxcars and taking them out to Nebraska or Wisconsin so farmers can pick from them to work the fields.
Wow.
And that was child trafficking back then. But people started picking up on this and telling the stories, and it eventually stopped.
Well, I think that we're getting very close to that point. I mean, I know that you talked about hoping that the first 2 wouldn't have done the job. But in some ways, I feel like they're all impactful. But this 3rd volume, I don't know. It was just, the stories are so almost next level.
Yeah.
And in the just horror of what is being done to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to touch on some of the stories to just support that comment for those that are watching, to see they're all hard stories, but they're important. And like you said, they're actually teaching what they went through and how they got through it. In some cases, they're still in the middle of it. And we need that direction, because you're not getting it anywhere else.
No.
So the first one I highlight is in chapter 3, Edyta Hanna Basista. She was born in communist Poland, a place where the state held dominion over everything, including the family. Under that regime, truth was not discovered, but dictated. Dissent wasn't debated, it was silenced, and children could be seized from parents without reason under the pretense of the greater good. When Edyta immigrated to the United States, she believed she was leaving all of that behind. Edyta thought she had arrived in the land of liberty and justice because, despite what she would endure, she still believed in the soul of this nation. Poland is the country of Edyta's birth, the mother who gave her life, but America is the mother who raised her. She taught Edyta to speak, to dream, to fight. However, when her system failed her, she didn't run. Edyta stood her ground. Edyta fights her battles with the Bible in her right hand and the Constitution in her left, because she believes in both divine justice and human rights. Edyta fights because she loves America, because America is wounded, not broken, and still worth every ounce of her strength. That's a power opening. And then we go on to learn about her story. And I wondered if you would take a moment and just summarize it, because to me, this is just like the epitome of.
Oh, yes. And I don't mean to get emotional, but
I know.
Her story and interviewing her, she is the most amazing person to cut through the corruption and keep going.
Yeah.
And enlighten people, even judiciary, on what's going on. And I just admire her so much.
Could you summarize a little bit of what she has suffered? Because it's I just know when I
Yeah.
read her story, I remember saying to you, this story needs to be towards the front because it's just,
Yeah.
it's not to be missed. So,
Right. She's been jailed. She has been going through the same torture that other parents have gone through, having the kids taken away and your life completely shattered, and she keeps going.
yeah.
And that needs to be told. So that will give other parents hope that just because the system may wreck you, you keep going.
I'm so glad her story is being told because what's happened to her should not go in silence.
Yeah,
And,
right.
yeah. And I think the fact that you get emotional just, hearing her introduction, it's the evidence of how powerful and profound her story is and how upsetting on the other hand.
Yes.
So the second story that I selected is equally upsetting. For me especially because I live in Texas and this is a Texas story and I work with the incarcerated in Texas. And this is a man who was in, I believe, your second book, the Odells, Patriot Mom and Dad, as they're also known. And so in their court battle with, I guess it's the mother of Emily Odell, is trying to take the kids and using the courts to do it, which is very common.
Right. Right. And it's really commonplace, and people don't realize that a grandparent will come in, make a false accusation, and wreak havoc in their own kids' lives using the children.
So she's done this, and so it came to the point where the false accusation became something really of great consequence to his life. I'm just going to read a part of this, and we can talk about it. It says, so he's basically being accused of sexual assault by his daughters, even though it was all put together by the grandmother. But it says later, a witness claimed to have seen both prosecutors and the judge enter the jury deliberation room, a violation of due process. The judge, reportedly seeking re-election, was eager to appear tough on crime and secure another life sentence conviction for his record. I see that so often because, like I said, I work with the incarcerated. I see this. Our criminal courts are just as corrupt. As the courtroom emptied, the Odell's family remained to endure what Kelly called, Kelly is a person who's also in your book that has been helping them. She's an advocate, called a theater of grief. The alleged victims gave statements, one daughter reading from a prepared script, her words likely written by the same woman who had orchestrated the lies. The children did not recognize their own father at all, which, of course, being the one they're accusing of assault, after the prosecutor had them look around the room twice, he was seated only a few feet away. Today, William Odell is serving a life sentence in a Texas correctional facility. His wife, Emily, left disabled by trauma and stress, is fighting to survive financially, emotionally, and spiritually while she and their family work tirelessly on his appeal. Kelly continues to advocate for them, determined that the truth, the evidence buried beneath legal corruption and political ambition, will finally be heard. She does not write this to convince anyone of William's innocence, but to reveal that the truth was never allowed to be told. That's how far it went in their families.
Right. Right. And this is why these books are written, because the judges are not looking at evidence. So when they came to me to write these books, their evidence is there. They're going to be heard in the books and on my podcast, Slam the Gavel.
Yeah. And that's just heartbreaking. And I've spent time going inside the prisons, and they're horrible places.
Yes.
And so many people don't have evidence looked at. So many are just railroaded. If they don't take a plea bargain of guilt for something they didn't do, then they get punished with massive sentences. A life sentence is unbelievable. It means he didn't kill anyone. He didn't even do it. But it's just, so it's exposing other court failures as well. But
right. And that's more like a criminal case. So like my podcast covers, family court, but it covers criminal, probate.
We could have a whole series of books like this just on criminal cases too. People who are, and again, what it is the weaponization of the courts.
Right.
And it's really hard. I mean, because just speaking to this situation, it's a sexual assault case. There are so many people in prison accused by a girlfriend or a stepdaughter or somebody who wanted to punish them of sexual assault with nothing but an accusation, and they go to prison for long periods. And I know that sexual assault happens and trafficking is happening. And it's so unsettling. But at the same time, we're locking up innocent people because the courts are being tough on it and putting away people because a woman wanted him put up, and not have him even be able to be free anymore. And that's really, you could have a
definitely.
whole series on that one weaponization. So sorry, that's a little off topic, but not, because that's definitely what they're dealing with. So the next chapter I chose is number 8. Nate Monroe's story of surviving a corrupt family court system cost him not just his son, but also his arm. So here we got somebody who just lost their freedom. Now he lost a part of his body, literally. It's
Right.
been almost 8 years since Nate was alienated from his son. His journey from Jefferson County DHS through the family law industrial complex has been filled with betrayal, loss, and systemic abuse that goes far beyond the personal. It's a public health crisis.
It is. It is. And as you know, and I know, these prisons, they have human rights violations going on every day. And this is global, okay? But they do not give you your medications. His arm got infected. They didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I want to add, this debtor's prison was abolished in 1833. Should not even be using this at taxpayers' expense.
Yeah. It's a really, I will say his story it's heartbreaking and inspirational, because he's
Right.
really, he part of what he's done since then is come up with a way to create prosthesis that he helps others with. There's an amazing picture of him in the book. You can see his arm draped,
It's
his
beautiful.
draped across a guitar. Hasn't stopped him from living. Man, if people just get to know these, the characters essentially in these stories, the people in this book, you feel for them, you love them, because they're such champions and warriors in the face of just the deep, dark, hidden, but pervasive abuse that's happening to citizens of our country and the world, and to see what these people have been put through. Oh, I'm so glad that you're giving them a voice. And I really want this book everyone needs to read this book. They really do. It's just, for their sakes, to give them the chance to have what they've been through be put in light, and not just, covered over and swept away.
Exactly. Because you and I kind of chose the subtitle, which was Family and Juvenile Courts Continue to Destroy Future Generations. And I also highlighted the 2 Kids for Cash victims in there as well, and how they're being rehaunted.
That's my next chapter, is the kids for. That's funny you say that. Let me read this, and then I want to dive into that. I do. That's amazing. That's exactly the next story. So the next chapter I chose is chapter 17. This is Corey Dunn. It says, sometimes Corey lies awake at night wondering how he even got here. How did he go from being a scared teenager standing in front of Judge
Chivarella,
thank you, during the infamous Kids for Cash era, to now being a grown man fighting tooth and nail to save his own children from the same Luzerne County machine? The truth is that this battle has been building for years, and it didn't just start in 2025. It started in December of 2016, the night the family's life was shattered.
Mm-hmm.
This man has dealt with it his whole life. He was the victim as a child. Now he's the victim as the father. And oh my gosh, sometimes I just don't know how God manages to keep himself from sending lightning bolts down on these people.
I agree. I know.
Our families this way. And I hope those lightning bolts are coming. But this is a metaphorical lightning bolt. It really is. Getting these stories out here and letting these people's experiences be known.
And some of their experiences, they want to tell the story, but they can't tell their name because they're afraid of retaliation.
Or they're still in the middle of the battle.
Right.
I believe Corey was still in the middle of the battle in this.
Yes.
In his stories. Do you know how it's going? Has there been any resolution for him yet?
Not really, honestly. He's still going at it, continuing. It's not stopping.
Yeah. I know I actually got to interview and talk with Robert Garza a few days ago, and he was in your second book.
Right.
And he said he was involved in it for 16 years. And now he's writing bills that are, are hopefully going to really put some accountability on the courts that haven't existed. He says, I figured out the code,
Yes.
I'm using code, literally. So Yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to see some changes happening, but it sure has taken a lot of suffering. So I guess this question almost doesn't need to be asked, but I always ask my authors how you came up with the title and cover of your book. And of course, I think it's worth talking about, again, what you mean by the title and how all your books in this series go together.
Well, raised by these wolves is what's happening to our children. They are being raised by whoever judge gives the custody to, who is generally the non-caring, abusive parent. And so they're being raised by these wolves who really don't care about how these children are being raised. And the wolves in each of the series have gotten worse looking. And I wanted it to go that way as, in the first volume, they look kind of nasty. The second volume, they look
kind
pretty
of snarling a little bit and looking at you.
And this one here, these wolves are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked that to go by because these parents are fighting the system. They're trying to make a difference. And then on top of that, they've got their family fighting them as well, as in the Odell case.
Yeah. So the wolves is really kind of an all-encompassing
Encompassing
label.
it exactly between the juvenile system, the foster care system. It's just so bad. I picked those wolves particularly to emphasize that.
Yeah, I think that it's it's a provocative color. I love it. I love the red in it. I know all your covers are similar. They all have their kind of own orange and then blue and then red.
And I appreciate your help with that because the layout was.
Yeah, it's definitely worked. And each of your books has a slightly different subtitle. I know the last one was really shining a light on the human trafficking aspect of it, which of course it's all that and more.
Yes.
Yes. So what advice do you have for aspiring authors? Because there's probably a lot of people who want to make a difference like you are and do it through books and publishing. So what advice would you have for anyone that's trying to make a difference? They
always say, how do I write a book? And I just say, go in chronological order. People that write novels, as you know, they bounce around from the past to the present. But when you're writing a story about yourself or someone else going through this, you've got to tell it in chronological order or it's not going to make any sense.
Yeah, that's true. When you're taking on abuse or other corruption, you don't want to be artistic with it.
Right.
Force the reader to try to figure out what you mean and be very straightforward. And it's really a kind of a collection of evidence in a sense, what you put together. The kind of evidence that gets buried, which is the actual stories and experience in the order that it happened for people in a way that's approachable instead of just like a stack of court records. So, yeah.
And people have them. They've showed me bins of all their motions and things that have been filed. I've got 2 big bins in my basement.
Yeah. So to take it from that to something that really is explaining it, what all those bins represent. Yeah.
Right.
And your book does that, and it's approachable. It's not a fat book. The chapters are relatively short, quick, easy reads, relatively easy. I say that because, it's heartbreaking, but they're not hard to read,
Right. And it's 190 pages, and it's also on audio as well.
Yes, I love that. You've got it in Kindle and audio. It had a great launch. I know you were telling me before we started recording that it's well received. There's a lot of. And the great thing too is now that you've given voice to all these people, they can all use this. This is a tool for them. You've empowered them to be able to take this and give it or have, people buy it, even buy it in bulk and get it to those that need to see what's happening that might be a part of the solution in a more direct way.
And with the second book, I'm not sure if I told you, but one of the people in the second book, the opposing counsel found out about the story in the book and he brought it to court to use it against the pro se who was representing themselves.
And they always do. Oh, look at this horrible person. Look at this bad thing they did.
Right. And so the judge looked at the book for 4 minutes. Do you know how long 4 minutes can be?
In court.
Right. And he didn't even care. He just handed it back to opposing counsel and said, well, there's a lot of family court stories in there.
Yeah. Like, what do you want me to?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, it's really good to be neutering those people in a sense, and I think it's going to happen more and more, honestly, as these stories are told and you continue your amazing podcast. I think you probably have one of the most important, and this is not an exaggeration at all, but
Oh,
one of the
thank
most
you.
important platforms really for people to come and share their stories and to teach each other. This is really just a sampling. What you've done is you've taken samplings of people you've talked to and the stories that have come across the waves from your mic and theirs.
Mhm.
And I hope that you'll continue. I know it's a labor of love. It's a lot of work. Sometimes I don't know if people realize just how much effort goes into it, but I know that you're making a difference. I know that you are.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people when they get into despair and they're calling me on the phone, and it's like, you're here on this earth to make the world a better place. So I begin by teaching the youth is what
Mm,
I do to stay out of these courtrooms.
yeah. I love that you said that because I think sometimes when we have such bad things happen and we get into that despair, it's good to put it in perspective to say,
Mhm.
this is what we're here for. And I think it was, I think it was the second book. I'm trying to remember who said it. There was one of your featured stories just said, this is what I'm on earth for. Like that was their approach, not a woe is me, look at all this. It's like, this is
Right.
what I was put here to do. And I think that when we take our adversities and approach the world
Mhm.
with our adversities from that perspective, it's so empowering. It's not victimization at all because
No.
it's you really, and I was thinking about this, the people who can make a difference are the
Yeah.
ones who've been through it. I
Right.
myself haven't. I haven't been through that. I'm a facilitator of helping people get their stories published and
Mhm.
shared. And I was thinking about because there's some things going on right now in Texas. I won't get into it because it would be a long explanation. But I was thinking about the people who are able to really step up, and without people like you who've been what you've been through and are putting so much power behind change, it would continue.
Right.
We need these warriors, all of them. And that's why this needs to be known. Who are the warriors? Who's
Mhm.
leading the charge and how can we support that?
And a lot of these people in this volume 3 are leading the charge,
Yes.
especially Edita Basista. She is
Oh, yeah.
creating so much awareness that the public needs to know what's going on with their taxpayer dollars. Yeah, right. And to point out the one story where the person did not want to be named due to intense retaliation. And a lot of people don't think that's real. And it's very real.
Yeah, that's what's going on right now in Texas. No,
Right.
it's a lot to get into, but they've just arrested and jailed a man, and they're throwing everything in his house on the street, and it's all because he was bucking their corruption. And
Right.
that's him doing that is what is allowing it to be seen. And I'm hopeful that what's happening is going to end up becoming widely known and will finally shine a spotlight on it. And so,
Right.
no, that's why I'm hopeful. I think that everyone being willing to fight like you do is really going to turn the tide.
Right. Some people will get their kids back and just totally walk away from the
Yeah.
system. And some people will get their kids back and continue to fight for other parents.
Yeah. And some never get their kids back.
Some, I mean, for the
And just
most part, no. I mean,
and
I
just
didn't get,
find their family in this fight. And it's a great family to be in. I mean, these people are amazing. They're some of the greatest souls on the planet when I see what they've been through and what they're doing and how they serve others. You're
right.
in great company. Not a
Yes.
great situation, but the people are great for
Right.
sure.
And I met some close friends through these books
Mm,
and great parents that are continuing to fight and educate. And a lot of them, have not lost their faith.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. In the face of all that, they really do set an example. And it doesn't matter what your adversity is. It doesn't matter. Just seeing somebody face adversity and not lose faith and stay strong
Mhm.
empowers you. So it's and that's another reason it's a great book for everyone. But it's such a with our families weakened and broken down like they are, it's a danger for our whole country.
Right.
Because when families are broken, we are all at risk of so much corruption and loss of freedom. So for that reason, also everyone should be concerned about what's happening to our
Right.
families.
Because these judges are handing over children to the parent with the bruised ego
Hmm.
that they have to pacify for the Title 4D funding. And this has to stop.
Yeah.
If they want to make money, they should listen to Robert Garza and
Yeah.
go with all his bills. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that his bills are going to be continuing to. I mean, they're already being used by many states and they're starting to work. So there's a lot of reason, I think it's a good place to end this conversation is to just say there's hope and
There
change
is
is
hope.
coming.
Yeah,
Change is
coming.
happening, so you don't have to read this book and just feel despondent. You're witnessing the movement, really, but we still have ways to go.
Right. Right.
Well, thank you for joining me again and for the opportunity to be a part of the process of sharing these amazing stories. And
thank you. And thank you for
hopefully we'll have you
publishing.
back with some wonderful children's books.
Yes.
Your next-
Yes.
Okay.
Here they come.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to work with you on that. And I think it'll be fun.